Here to speak ill.
There you have it.
This is always freezing.
Yeah.
Well, people really do have something to talk about. Nine AM, this is a regular meeting of the Butte County Local Agency Formation Commission, or LAFCo. Please join me in salute the flag of our nation.
Ready?
Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Bolin,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Kimmelshoe,
Here.
Chair Connolly,
Here.
Commissioner McGrehan, Commissioner Duncan, Commissioner Betts,
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Rust, Alternate Commissioner Bradley, Alternate Commissioner Ritter, Alternate Commissioner Shepherd.
Here.
Thank you.
Would anybody on the dais like to pull anything from the consent agenda? Is there public comment on the consent agenda? Close public comment. Wishes of the board.
I move to approve. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. We're gonna move on to our regular agenda. 4.2 Butte LAFCO 101, an introduction to the roles and functions of Butte LAFCO Agency Formation Commission.
All right, thank you. We did invite today all of our member agencies, and so that's why we have a little bit more of a crowd today. So that's exciting. So I appreciate everyone being here. We have folks online and in the audience today. Let's see, is this gonna work?
I've requested this over a few years, actually. I think
Yes.
it's important to
That's working.
understand what LAFCO is created for and what we actually do, so. It's worked for me.
Okay, so
Southside-
yes.
Southside got around.
As Chair Connolly said, this is a session that's been requested as we get new members onto our commission and new member agency folks turn over. I think this is beneficial for them, for you. And so this is something we hope to continue to do into the future. And of course, for any of our member agencies who want something, you know, I'm always happy to come and talk to them and come to their meetings and give this type of presentation for them as well. So, so today's session is going to talk, I hope, very thoroughly about LAFCO. It's a comprehensive look at LAFCO in general. We're going to talk about the history of LAFCO, why we exist and why we matter. We're going to talk about our role and authority, key functions of LAFCO, what the application process looks like for LAFCO, and the factors that we need to consider when we're evaluating our projects, roles and responsibility of both commissioners and LAFCO staff. We'll take a look at how we function at a state level. And then, of course, at the end, there'll be time for questions from anybody. So first, let's talk about the history of LAFCO. So we're back, you know, post World War II, California's population is booming. Urban development is happening all over the place to accommodate population growth. And cities are growing, forming, and expanding with little to no oversight. And so this leads to overlaps in service and inefficiencies in government. So in 1963, the California legislature creates LAFCO as a watchdog for these cities as they're there to grow, and were created to manage orderly growth and prevent uncoordinated expansion of these cities. So LAFCO's ever evolving, and we start to see that evolution happen in 1971, where special district representation is added to LAFCO. So this gives our special districts a voice in boundary changes. And then again, in 1985, LAFCO's authority is expanded to include special districts, oversight of special districts within LAFCO's authority. This also introduces the concept of sphere of influence and establishes new procedures for annexations, formations, and dissolutions, or boundary changes, as we call them. And then in 2000, this is sort of LAFCO as we know it today under the Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Local Government Reorganization Act of 2000. So this is the law that we function under today. So that act merged and strengthened all these other previous acts, gives LAFCO further authority and enhances policies to discourage urban sprawl and protect ag land and open space. And then through this, we see the introduction of municipal service reviews being required in order to establish or amend a sphere of influence. So LAFCO today, we exist in all 58 counties. In various, we see, LAFCO's very strong and high functioning and has lots of staff members. To some LAFCOs are their planning department. And so LAFCOs are, they vary across the state, but they do exist in all 58 states. And like I said, LAFCO continues to evolve. Legislation's always changing to meet the needs of our state.
As you go along?
Sure.
Okay. So is each LAFCO in each county made up of the exact same makeup here, city, county, and special district
Not all
representation?
not all LAFCOs have special district representation. More than half do, probably about 30-ish LAFCOs have special district representation. But they all do at least have 5 members.
So it's up to each LAFCO to decide how the makeup of their board. Is that right?
They will all always be 2 members of the Board of Supervisors, 2 members of a city council or a city council member, a public member,
Okay.
and then in most cases, a special district member.
All right. Thank you.
So this code section I pulled straight from the beginning of Cortese-Knox, and I think it really emphasizes and encapsulates the mission of LAFCO. It says the legislature recognizes that the local formation and determination of local agency boundaries is an important factor in promoting orderly development and in balancing that development with sometimes competing state interests of discouraging urban sprawl, preserving open space and prime ag land, and efficiently extending government services. Providing housing for persons and families of all incomes is an important factor in promoting orderly development. So this is sort of the crux of why we exist. So the mission of LAFCO can be broken down into like I read from that code section, these 3 main goals or charges that are given to LAFCO from the legislature: to promote efficient and sustainable extension of services, to promote orderly growth and development, and to preserve ag land and open space. So we do this through several tools that we have. Each of our projects and considerations that come before us, this is always going to be our main consideration. So in order to promote efficient, sustainable services, we're going to look at the financial ability of an agency to support the growth that that they're proposing, and that they can reliably and financially sustain that service that they're wanting to provide. And then we ensure clear jurisdictional boundaries, and this is to avoid overlaps in service so that, someone's not paying essentially for two types of the same service. To promote orderly growth and development, we're going to look to direct growth to areas where services already exist. And that's in order to maximize the taxpayers' dollars and reduce taxpayer burden by maximizing the existing infrastructure. And then, like I said, when infrastructure is proposed to grow or expand, we make sure that's done in a financially responsible and sustainable way. And then, of course, discourage leapfrog development again by ensuring that growth is focused in areas where these services already exist. And then, of course, the preservation of ag land through our actions, we're able to, again, discourage urban sprawl away from areas where ag land and open space. This is to protect valuable farmland, especially here in Butte County. That's a huge economic driver for us. And then, of course, open space provides natural habitat and environmental benefits to our community. So these goals they're all achieved through the tools that we here at Butte LAFCo, but that we'll kind of talk about further, but also through our partnerships with our agencies. Some of our special districts exist to prevent, to support ag land. Our irrigation districts are there, and we rely on them to be successful and to be sustainable so that ag land can continue to be prosperous in our county. So what makes LAFCo different from other agencies? Well, we're independent. So we're not a county department. We're not a state department. We exist completely independently. And LAFCo staff is accountable to this commission. So we're not accountable to the Board of Supervisors or to a city council. And this commission makes the final decision. So all of your decisions, they can't be appealed to another body for reconsideration. LAFCo is unique because we have both regulatory and planning functions. As a regulatory body, we oversee boundary changes and government structure changes. We establish and modify spheres of influence, which is a growth boundary that we'll talk about more. We conduct municipal service reviews, which are like an audit of government services. We'll talk about that. We regulate the provision of public services. So we oversee the types of services that certain agencies can provide. And then, of course, we oversee out of area service agreements. And so when an agency wants to extend their service outside of their boundary, they come to us for that approval. Then as a planning agency, we assist in guiding growth. Like I said, we guide growth within the bounds of a jurisdiction where services are already available. We influence this through policy and through implementing state law. And then, of course, we set our own policies. So we follow Cortese-Knox that guides us in all of our decisions, but we do have a set of local policies that are unique to Butte LAFCo. So all LAFCos throughout the state will have very comprehensive and detailed policies, or some may be a little more loose, but the policies that we set are unique to the needs of Butte County. So what can't we do? I think this is important just because, we don't have a complete reign over the county. So we are not a land use authority. So we don't regulate zoning, essentially. So we can't tell a city or the county the appropriate zoning designation for lands within their boundaries. And we don't dictate how they use the land once it is zoned. And so we can't tell them whether or not a certain type of use is appropriate or not appropriate. We can evaluate whether they can serve the area, but we can't tell them that that should be commercial rather than residential. We don't directly provide a service, so we don't control how services are delivered. That's up to the agency, and we can't force an agency we can't force an agency to provide or improve a service. So if there's a need for, say, an audit, we don't step in and do the audit, or we don't handle we go in and we can identify the needs of the agency, but we would never step in to provide that service for them. We don't impose or regulate taxes, fees, or assessments. So like I said, we can identify the need for perhaps additional sources of revenue, but we cannot force a district or a city to raise or lower its fees or assessments. And we do not set or regulate taxes, service rates, or assessments. So all of those decisions are made by the agency. And then some other limitations, we don't intervene in internal agency operations, so we don't step in an HR issue and say, this is how you should handle the situation. We don't oversee certain types of bodies like JPAs, school and college districts, transit districts, air pollution control districts. And then, of course, we don't override local decisions. So if a proposal comes to us, we cannot approve or deny a project based on, like I said, the land use that's proposed. We can only make considerations based on whether or not the agency can serve what's being proposed.
But if they don't have enough board members or whatever in that agency, we can go and talk to them about they need more board members?
Definitely. We can make recommendations until our face turns blue, but it's up to the agency.
We can't force it, right? We
Yeah,
can just recommend
yes,
it. Right?
exactly.
If a district's severely underfunded, we see that, and then they want to expand their boundary.
Yeah, so that's a consideration that we would have to take that into consideration when, and we'll talk about more what a the purpose of a municipal service review. That's essentially an evaluation of whether or not a service can be extended.
Indirectly, we could regulate by saying you don't have the money to.
Indirectly,
expand it.
yes, yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, so let's talk about the types of LAFCo projects. So boundary changes, this includes annexations or detachments. So land being brought into an agency or an agency's jurisdiction or taken out of a agency's jurisdiction that comes through LAFCO. Out of area service agreements, like we talked about, this is a service extension where annexation into the agency is either infeasible or undesirable or doesn't meet certain LAFCO law or criteria for some reason. So say the city Chico wants to provide sewer to a parcel outside of their agency. There are certain criteria that they have to meet in order for us to allow them to extend that service to that parcel. The formation, dissolution of agencies or reorganization, as we might call them. So this includes city incorporation, city disincorporation, special district formation, special district dissolution, the consolidation of two agencies into one new agency, or merging agencies together. And then, of course, the sphere of influence and municipal service review, I'll talk about more. We are empowered to establish and amend a sphere of influence, and then those are informed by these periodic municipal service reviews. I'm going to talk more about that because to me, the sphere of influence in the municipal service review is sort of the bread and butter of LAFCO. That's the heavy tools that we use. So a sphere of influence, what is it? It's a planning boundary that identifies where a city or special district is expected to grow and provide services in the future. So this creates, by establishing a sphere of influence, this creates a known boundary. It's known to the agency, it's known to the surrounding agencies where that agency intends to grow. And these are established and updated by LAFCO to guide logical and efficient development. The purpose of a sphere of influence is to ensure balance and growth. It's a tool for long-term regional growth planning to prevent urban sprawl, promote efficient public services, and of course, protect ag lands like we talked about. This sphere of influence, like I said, it's a tool. It sets a known for the region. And so we often talk about how there's a domino effect. So we set a sphere of influence for the city of Chico, and regional plans are typically based on knowing that the city of Chico intends to grow into their sphere of influence. And so that affects how the Butte County Association of Governments, BCAG, how they set their regional housing needs or distribute their regional housing needs, how they create their transportation plans, how local hazard mitigation plans are set. It has a ripple effect into many other plans and how the county in general organizes on a regional basis. So each of our agencies has its jurisdictional boundary, and then it has a sphere of influence. Some agencies' sphere of influence is coterminous with its jurisdiction, so it's not anticipated that they would grow. But most of our growth agencies, like those who provide municipal services like a city or the town or a sewer or water provider, we typically set their sphere of influence beyond their boundary where we know that they will serve in the future.
The staff of this commission, do you have a rule of thumb of how frequently you examine and establish a sphere of influence?
Sure. So in the next slide, I'll talk more about a municipal service review, but state law says that a sphere of influence is to be informed by a municipal service review. So you have to have an up-to-date municipal service review to establish or amend the sphere, and that should be done every 5 years as needed. And so that as needed part can be interpreted differently. Some LAFCOs stick to you're on a 5-year cycle. It's sort of up to the community. It's up to the county. It's up to how we see things changing. We have irrigation districts who are boxed in on all 4 sides. They're not going to grow. They're not going to change. They're limited in growth by their existing infrastructure, by the land use that underlays their district, by their populations. And so going in and putting them on a 5-year schedule, we're just going to regurgitate the same information each time. And so most of, like I said, our growth agencies, our cities, and our other like sewer and water providers, we do keep them on a regular schedule because they dictate growth in our county. So it's important to update those documents based on the changes that are happening in our county. So in order for us to establish or amend the sphere of influence, there are these factors that we need to make determinations for. That includes, they're just sort of written out here, pulled from the government code: existing and future service capacity, population growth projections, land use and environmental considerations, financial feasibility, and coordination with local agencies. So this is what the government code provides that we have to look at, and then we expand on that and provide additional information about that. Okay, so the municipal service review, the definition is a comprehensive evaluation of an agency comprehensive evaluation of agencies that provide service. It's like I said, required by LAFCOs prior to establishing or updating a sphere of influence. And it ensures that services are efficient, financially sustainable, and meeting the needs of the community. So the purpose is to provide critical data to make an informed decision. And so like you'll see in the determinations, we evaluate an agency's service efficiency. We identify service gaps and overlaps, support informed. The municipal service review is used to support informed boundary changes, ensure fiscal sustainability, and encourage collaboration amongst our agencies. And then, of course, the determinations, these are pulled out from government code. They're similar to SOI determinations, but there's a little difference there. Growth and population projections, disadvantaged unincorporated communities, service capacity and infrastructure needs, financial health and stability, shared facility and coordination, and government accountability and transparency. So an MSR is a tool, like I said, for us to make informed decisions. It's like how a city or town has its general plan, and every proposal that comes before them has to be compared to that general plan for consistency. Well, for us, it's the municipal service review. So whether it was developed a year ago or 5 years ago, we can look back at that document and know whether or not this agency, if they're proposing to grow, does the document support that growth, and does it support, them as a government structure? Are they financially capable of providing the service? Was it established in the municipal service review that they would grow? So it's a tool for us. It's also a tool for the agency. And so no one likes to talk about their deficiencies or the areas where they need work, but having a documented deficiency in a municipal service review can be used for them to seek grant funding or other types of funding if a wastewater treatment plant needs to be upgraded. If it's in a document, it's documented and adopted by this commission, they now have it written and they could submit, use that for the grant funding or something like that. So I love to highlight all the good things that our agencies do, but the goal of the municipal service review is to highlight areas where they need improvement, so that we can focus on that, and then of course check in with them to check on progress. So let's talk about the typical application process for something that, a proposal that comes to LAFCo. So I've split this up into a pre-application, an application process, and then a post-application, because essentially it's a long process for us, not necessarily for the agency, but for us as a LAFCo, it can be quite an extensive process. So pre-application, we always recommend that an agency consult with LAFCO staff. Come to us, let us know what you're trying to work on, and we can guide you in the right direction or come up with some creative alternative routes for you to take. Always public outreach. Don't spring anything new upon your constituents. And then, of course, prepare your application package by compiling the necessary studies. So this often includes some sort of financial study that identifies the fiscal impact of the proposal. For a sphere of influence updates, a municipal service review might be necessary. A plan for service is always how you're going to provide the service and how you're going to, like I said, financially support that service. And then in some cases, some level, or in all cases, some level of environmental review is necessary. And that's up to the lead agency to decide. State law provides that we as a LAFCo can request this documentation as part of the application process. And it also states any other studies that we might seem necessary in order to make an informed decision. Then, of course, an application is submit to LAFCo. And just like any other typical planning process, it's reviewed for completeness. We are subject to permit streamlining, so we have a certain amount of days in order to deem an application complete or provide an incomplete letter. We request comments from affected agencies. State law tells us some agencies that we have to request comments from, but we typically include any agency sort of in the vicinity of the proposal. We make an environmental determination. In most cases, we're a responsible agency, but for some, we're a lead agency. We provide public notice and a comment period. Our required public notice timeframe is 21 days prior to any public hearing. We prepare a staff report and recommendations for the commission, and then, of course, schedule a public hearing. And then post-application, say the commission hears a proposal and approves it. They can approve, deny, or approve with conditions any proposal. And then in some cases, a protest hearing could be required, or even an election by the landowners or registered voters within the annexation or whatever territory. And then once all that's wrapped up, we create a package that we file with the county clerk. We record all of our actions at the county clerks and then send those off to the State Board of Equalization. So it's quite an extensive process. It's not just so much as, writing a staff report. So it can be a long process, but the pre-application, I'd say, is probably one of the most important parts. Get to your LAFCO early, talk to LAFCO about what you're proposing, and let us guide you and help you in that application process so that you're successful. So for every project, for every boundary change that we do, and I do not expect you to read any of this, actually, these are the factors for consideration that are found in state law. And I put this up here because it's impactful. And these are the factors for every single boundary change project that comes before us. We have to make a finding for each of these considerations. And so it covers a broad range of issues. Some, not so, some are easy to decide. Does the area have definite boundaries? Yes, it's got 5 parcels. Some of them are pretty extensive and they take a lot of thought to put into them. So, and these are ever changing. It seems like every couple of years, a new one gets added and eventually we're going to be down to Z and then I don't know, Z1 or whatever. I don't know. It's just going to keep growing. So
Added by what means?
through they're introduced at a state level and someone somewhere decides that that's now it's evolving. LAFCO's kind of role in California is evolving. And so you'll see kind of at the end of the list is environmental justice consideration. So that's one of our newer ones. And so it's now been put on LAFCO that we take into consideration. That's sort of a I don't know, broad statement, environmental justice consideration. So for us here at Butte LAFCO, we consider, do they have fire protection, water service, and sewer service? For other LAFCOs, maybe down in the South, LA LAFCO or San Diego LAFCO, that means something different to them. And so that section of their staff report might be a little more beefed up. And so somebody probably, Steve obviously knows the history of how that came to be, but somebody somewhere decided that LAFCO was. Yes, yeah,
Let's put it bluntly.
Yeah.
And that was a very common thing, and that's why that was included
Right.
originally. You
right.
can't say this neighborhood isn't going to contribute to our city coffers, or they're never going to get on our sewer. So we're
The
going to
tax
go
base isn't enough. It's not going to be worth it for
and
us.
avoid people
Right.
because they're socially, economically disadvantaged.
So
Right.
why so many factors? So LAFCO decisions are not simple. Like I said, they're not straightforward. They're comprehensive. They have a regional impact on how this county grows and how we evolve. And so it's important that we do consider all of those factors. Boundary changes have wide-ranging impacts on service delivery, local governance, financial stability, and community development. So by considering all those factors, we're making comprehensive decisions. Each project affects multiple aspects of government and service, like I talked about before, and the environment. And so it's important that it's reviewed comprehensively. We want to avoid negative impacts and achieve sustainability by ensuring that boundary changes don't overextend services, increase financial burden, or disrupt communities. We want to balance competing priorities and make neutral decisions to prevent conflicts between growth, preservation, and fiscal sustainability, and ensure legal compliance, align decisions with state law, local general plans, and environmental regulations. Okay, so let's lighten it up a little and talk about this LAFCO. So Butte LAFCO is its composition is this commission. So the structure of our commission includes 2 city members. They are elected by, or 2 members who sit on a city council. So they are selected by the city selection committee. We have 2 members of the Board of Supervisors who are appointed at typically the first Board of Supervisors meeting of the year. We have 2 special district representatives, so they sit on, we have a enterprise district and a non-enterprise district. And they are selected through an election that responsibility was given to this LAFCo. So we're currently conducting an election, so turn in your ballots. And we have 1 public member who is selected by this body. And then, of course, each of those categories has an alternate member. So 1 city alternate member, 1 county alternate member, 1 special district, and 1 public member. So that's our commission.
How many special districts make up our,
We have 38 special districts.
all right. And so when they do their election, how many ballots need to be turned in?
We need a quorum
Okay.
of ballots. So what are 20?
20, okay.
And are we doing it non-enterprise right now? It's for a non-enterprise seat. So
Just to be clear, everybody to
yes.
vote, enterprise.
Okay,
Next time around.
Yes.
okay. So explain to me the difference between the enterprise and non-enterprise. Sorry
It's
about that. I should
it's
know,
their,
but-
essentially it's their revenue stream. So an enterprise district collects their revenues through cost for service. So PID, Paradise Irrigation District, collects the money for the charges for water, whereas a non-enterprise district is a park district or, well, no, a cemetery district. They don't collect any sort of revenue based
dead.
on their service. They don't collect any money really, but and then let's see, your LAFCO staff. So as of today, we have an executive officer, a deputy executive officer, an office manager, and then we have 1 retired annuitant who she does all the things. And so that's your existing LAFCO staff. And then, like I said, this looks different for LAFCOs across the state. Some have 15 employees, some have 1. And so it just sort of varies from county to county. And then we do contract certain staff. So we contract legal counsel, we have a GIS consultant, and then we contract some services through the county. That's based on our original contract when we went independent. The county provides services like IT and IS services. Our what we call member agencies are made up of 5 cities, so Biggs, Gridley, Orville, Chico, and Paradise. We have 38 special districts that range in service from domestic water, wastewater treatment and collection, cemetery, park, mosquito abatement, community service districts. And then we have 60, about 60-ish county service areas. So these are like a specialized type of district that allow the county to provide like a very specific service to a specific area. And they're overseen by the Board of Supervisors. They're the body who oversees that district. And then our funding, so LAFCO's funding is, our revenues are primarily from application fees and project processing. So for each application that comes to us, we collect a, what we call like a real-time billing. So we have like a per hour, and we kind of give an estimate for each project. So we collect application processing fees, and then of course apportionments from our member agencies. And so the way when we went independent, with the way that this was split up was our budget is created, and then 45% of that is paid by the county, 45% is split amongst the cities, and then 10% of that is split amongst the special districts. So this funding structure allows LAFCO to remain independent and neutral in our decision making, and it shares the responsibility amongst our local agencies and distributes the financial burden in a way that's fair. Okay, so the role of LAFCO staff. We are here to be the expert in a whole range of things so that we can present to you a recommendation that's based on a whole gamut of information that you can assume is accurate and reliable. So we analyze and interpret Cortese Knox CKH is Cortese Knox Hertzberg Local Government Reorganization Act of 2000, which who wants to say that? And of course, other state laws. So we have to keep up to date on CEQA regulations, Brown Act regulations, revenue and tax code, and then of course, general plans, zoning, and any other plans that are adopted by any of our local agencies. So we're constantly trying to stay up to date on what and any sort of general plan updates that our agencies are doing. And then plans that are adopted by our local agents, special districts that kind of give us a glimpse into what their plans are. We process proposals, so we ensure consistency with state law, with local policies. We prepare staff reports, studies, and recommendations, and then of course we conduct public outreach, sometimes on our own behalf, sometimes on behalf of the local agency. We collaborate with our partners, including Special Districts Association, League of Cities, and just really any other agency who's interested in learning more or partnering with us. And then, of course, we're here to serve the commission by providing accurate and comprehensive information, providing our own technical expertise. Like I said, we're expected to be the expert in this state law so that we can provide you with informed decisions. We provide customer service to the public and our member agencies. Often we're the face of LAFCo on your behalf, and we take that very seriously. And then, of course, the day-to-day operations of our agency, so financial and administrative management of the LAFCo agency. The role of a LAFCo commissioner is to attend LAFCO meetings, which you all do, and I'm thankful for you being here. So a little bit about our meetings. They're held on the first Thursday of each month in the Oroville City Council chambers. They are subject to the Brown Act, open meeting acts, and so our agendas are posted in advance online at the door of the city of Oroville, and then of course at the door of our office. We need a quorum to make any of our decisions, and so a quorum is 4 of the 7 members, and that can be any combination of the 7 of you. And we do encourage our alternates to encourage and observe and to keep up to date on what's happening in LAFCO so that they can step in when needed to provide an alternate vote. How to be an effective commissioner. Be prepared, review your staff reports. You receive those at least probably 7 days in advance before the meetings. So reach out to staff if you have any questions. Ask questions and seek clarification if it's needed. Respond to staff when they have questions for you. We rely on you to give us feedback. Follow the Brown Act, ensuring transparency in your decision making, and then of course remain partial. So you're here to make decisions on behalf of LAFCO and our county. So you take off your city hat or your special district hat and you put on your LAFCO hat and you make your decision based on what's important to LAFCO and the law and the policy that guides our decisions. So I do want to talk just kind of quickly, hopefully, about some notable projects that this commission has worked its way through in the last couple years, just because these projects are impactful and they're impactful on a county basis. So I'll just kind of run through these. The Chico Island annexation, it took in the last 4. This is an agreement that was between Butte, LAFCO, and the city of Chico. It took in the last 4 remaining islands. And as part of the agreement, we allowed the city of Chico to stagger their recording of the certificate of compliance in order for them to prepare to take in these new areas. I don't know the land total, but it was quite extensive, quite large areas that we took into the city of Chico. And then you may recall that we lost the Chico Canyon annexation island to an election. So that this commission approved annexation of Chico Canyon Road. It went to protest hearing, which triggered an election of the landowners and registered voters, and it failed at an election. So when you look at a map of the entire county, there's one island, and it's on Chico Canyon Road in the city of Chico, adjacent to Bidwell Park. And it gives me heartburn to think about it. The South Oroville annexation, this took in an underserved area of South Oroville that had been overlooked and ignored, like Bill said, for many years. We can't just ignore our underserved communities. So by taking in South Oroville, it took in hundreds of parcels, integrated them into the fabric of the city of Oroville. So it gave them the power to vote in city elections. It gave them access to police and fire. It gave them access to public works. And the city of Oroville has contributed hundreds of thousands of dollars to the South Oroville area over the last couple of years since this area was taken in. And so that is a pretty exciting project. Similar to that.
I want to note that Oroville voted for the annexation.
Yes.
Themselves, and there's always been a member from South Oroville on the city council since the annexation.
Similar to South Oroville is the Chapman-Mulberry annexation, neighborhood annexation. So this annexation settled longstanding governance issues where the city of Chico had been extending service into these areas without proposing annexation. So again, by bringing them into the fabric of the county or of the city, we were able to extend to them equal services as maybe the road across the street from them. It gave them access to city police, city fire, voting. And so that was a big accomplishment that took in hundreds of parcels that had been overlooked for so many years. The City of Oroville CAL FIRE contract, this was a new regulation put in place in 2014 under Government Code 56134, which is under our extension of services government code. And it changed the way fire services can be extended into, it just kind of gave an extra step of oversight when a local agency is to contract their services with CAL FIRE. And as far as we know, we were the first LAFCo in the state to process a contract under this new code section. So we basically had to invent the wheel, which in the planning area, you don't do that. You don't, you take someone else's wheel and you use it. So we sort of set a foundation for the rest of the state to follow the process that we used. And we do know that it has been used several times over. And so that was exciting to navigate that process. And then, of course, the formation of the Tuscan Water District, that was very recent. This formation of a new California Water District, of course, came before you with lots of public concern. And so the district was approved with many, many conditions that, and that just sort of highlights LAFCo's ability to incorporate public concerns into an approval here at LAFCo. And I think we can confidently say that the conditions that we put on this project in response to public concern met the needs of the community and quelled their concerns over the district, but also is allowing Tuscan Water District to thrive and to become a now well-functioning district. So that's exciting. And then, of course, when we talk about accomplishments, we can't ignore that this LAFCo's been recognized many times over at the state level by our state organization, Cal LAFCo. Most recently, with Steve receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award and Bill receiving the Outstanding Commissioner Award. These add to a list of many awards that this commission has received over time.
We also had mosquito abatement absorbed
Yes.
a couple smaller.
So what is LAFCo? This is our statewide organization. So we are a member of LAFCo. It stands for the California Association of Local Agency Formation Commissions. It's a statewide organization that provides education, technical assistance, and advocacy for all LAFCOs. And like I said, Butte LAFCo is known amongst LAFCo. Steve, through his work at LAFCo, has created a legacy of a long history of leadership and engagement with LAFCo. This varies from being the executive officer of LAFCo and various other positions that he's held. Bill being the chair of LAFCo for a year, and other positions that he's held. We always participate in conferences, so we put on sessions and participate in sessions. So why is LAFCo important to us? It facilitates communication and best practices amongst LAFCOs. It offers training and resources to commissioners and staff. It advocates for LAFCO interests at the state legislature, and it hosts annual conferences and workshops to improve LAFCO operations. So while Bill wants to really to say that LAFCO is, or LAFCO is sort of at a
It's off the rails, right?
it's off the rails as we speak today, but I do believe that LAFCO is a valuable resource, that it can get back on the rails, and that there is a future moving forward for that organization. And I intend to do what I can to make sure that happens. So commissioner resources. Trainings and conferences. If you're not able to attend a conference, they provide the LAFCo on their website provides all of their sessions online. So those are available for you. Butte LAFCo policies and procedures, of course, can be found online. And those are, like I said, our guiding documents, understanding the Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Act. And then, of course, your LAFCo staff. If you ever have questions, concerns, anything, reach out to your LAFCO staff and initiate a conversation. So key takeaways from today's session. Let's see, LAFCO law is evolving. State laws continue to change, like we talked about. This requires ongoing education and engagement from LAFCO staff as well as our commissioners. LAFCO is collaborative. We work with our member agencies, our cities, counties, special districts, and the public to ensure efficient and sustainable governance. Our process matters. All applications follow a very structured process with legal, financial, and service impact reviews before this commission makes its decision to make sure, like we said, those decisions are comprehensive and well-informed. The commissioner's role is key. You serve as in a neutral regional capacity, making informed, fair, and policy-driven decisions. And LAFCO's role is vital to this community. We ensure logical growth, efficient delivery of services, and resource preservation. Okay, so.
Okay, I'd like you to expand upon the protests, because
Sure.
that's what we run into all the time. And a lot of that is a district or a community. They don't go out and educate the public before we get to the protest. And protests are generally based on emotion, but explain the process more fully.
It's quite the process, but to make it to make it simple, all of our boundary changes are subject to a protest hearing. And in most cases, you'll find in your staff report that we're able to waive the protest pursuant to a law that's found in Cortese-Knox. But in some cases, a project goes to a protest hearing. So you approve it here as a commission, and then we schedule a protest hearing, which is an election for no votes, essentially. And so there's lots of information that we have to gather ahead of time. We have to, collect how many registered voters, landowners, assess land values, and we gather a bunch of data. We hold a protest hearing, and there are different, do you know I don't know the criteria off the top of my head for.
So there's a process that Shannon already described, once it comes to us and it goes to a protest hearing, you've identified that as a function for the executive officer, so you don't have to hold that as a commission. We hold that internally at our office. We take those protest votes in and we count them, depending on the type of annexation it is. Some of it is based on landowner voter votes. More often than not, it's based on registered voters and their votes or no votes. And there is a component of assessed land value that goes along with the landowner vote tabulation. But once that's all tabulated, then essentially it comes out to this, and there's some scenarios that are really in the weeds I'm not going to even talk about, but unless you have specific questions. If 25% or less of the registered voters or landowners protest at that protest proceeding, then your decision stands and we go forward. And in a sense, it's not enough. You have to get at least to 25% of a no vote for protest to trigger something next. If you're under 25, your decision stands. We go ahead and record the document. It's over. If it's 25 to 50%, that demands that we go forward with an actual election. We don't run the election. If it's the county clerk runs the election. If it's a city, the city clerk runs the election. They inform us of the outcome of that election. And these elections are affirmative votes. So unlike the protest proceeding, which is a no vote, similar to like a 218 process in some cases, the election is just simply up or down for the number of people who submit it. You could have 100 voters. If 5 participate and 3 say no, it's over. And at that point, we are locked into that decision for a period of 2 years. We can't go back and resuggest it for a 2-year period. Does that answer your question, Bill?
Yeah, I just want people to understand it's good to educate and avoid the protest. Really is.
Well, I think as Shannon pointed out in her slides, that we go the extra mile, the extra 10 miles if necessary, to hold people's hands, to show up into their community, talk to them at events, to try to convince them that this is why the policy makes sense. But people vote the way they vote. As you pointed out, often it's emotions.
And the other thing for everybody here doing this for 20 years, the legislature is like a fickle body. I mean, they created us for rational growth, then they'll throw something on us that we probably weren't intended to do. And in the meantime, they'll try to pass legislation to provide services around a boundary or something. So it's always a difficult balance with the legislature, trying to educate them and or work with them. The other thing I'd like to share with everybody is we are a tool. LAFCo has been very successful in helping special districts and cities overcome issues. If we're used or asked to be used, we're not here to sideline you or throw you off track, but to guide you in a rational manner to a good result. And I think that's been misinterpreted and misunderstood. And the reason I laugh when she talks about some LAFCOs, there's some counties that don't even engage with LAFCO. I mean, violation of the law, actually. But so we're a tool. We want to be used and be your friend. We don't want to be adversarial in any way. And I wanted all of you to hear this so you know there's a lot of power here. It correctly used, it's for the good, you know. That's why I really want to do this. And I thank the staff for your efforts. But anybody else got any questions?
Yeah, so with what you're saying, if there are deficiencies in MSR or whatever the situation is, we're more of a team player with them to help them back. There is no teeth with LAFCO in that situation. We're just,
There are roundabout ways that we will use an MSR. Say a city's MSR says that their roads are awful and that they've not been investing money into their roads and that
don't
they
come to
need to do
paradise,
that.
please.
No, no, no.
You're getting better.
Then they simultaneously want to annex a new area to build a new neighborhood. We will tell them, how can you annex new area and build new neighborhoods when you can't even take care of the neighborhoods that you do have? And so that's a tool where we can use the MSR. We can't tell them, go fix your roads, but we can base our future decisions on what's highlighted in the municipal service review.
So again, it's kind of a coaching, coming alongside, pointing out things and that type of thing.
Exactly. It's essentially an audit of them and like all audits, it's made available to the public, to the constituents of that agency so that they're aware of how their tax dollars are being spent.
Thank you.
If I might add to that, Commissioner Bolin, Shannon put up a slide that had the factors that we consider, and there's 18 factors there. Those factors are largely aligned with the MSR determination. So as she said, we gather all this information from the MSR, and then we look at this list of 18 factors, and we pull the information out of that to address those 18 factors. So if we say no to a project, we're not saying no because we don't like it, because we think the land use is wrong. It's those 18 factors that we look at, and we could find it incorrect or incompatible with all 18 of those things, or one. But any of those are enough for this commission to say, based on those factors, you're going to deny it, not because it's a subdivision or it's a pig farm, simply because here's things that we have found that are inconsistent that can't be done. And so that gives you the ability to say no, but for very specific reasons related to LAFCo factors.
And that's to give our final approval on whatever that
Correct.
they're bringing to us. But if it's an existing situation, we don't have any teeth other than to work with them and try to show
Sure.
them.
There
help
are
them.
agencies out there who, through a municipal service review, we've identified several issues, but they're not growing. They're not coming to us. They're not asking us for anything. So they're just sort of sitting out there, not meeting certain goals and in those cases, all we can do is we sort of go above and beyond to provide them with resources that can help improve their situation. But there are lots of scenarios where they're just status quo, and that's the way they've always been doing things, and that's the way they'll continue to
That's
do
what I like
things.
about LAFCO. I mean, that's the part that, we want you to succeed.
Yeah.
We want you to get better or heal or whatever it is. What can we do to help you? And
Yeah.
A lot of people don't see it that way, and I just want to
Yeah.
make sure.
I can give you a very clear example, and Commissioner Connolly was here when this unfolded, as was Mr. Betts. City of Chico, Chapman, Mulberry District, Shannon identified as one of our successes. That took a decade or more to work with the city. They consistently refused to take that island in. It took to the point where this commission at that time said to the city, essentially, and I'll be blunt, you want other things on your periphery. You want to grow. You want that new this or that new. We are not going to find that approved unless you fix this problem first. We can't tell you what to do. We can tell you what we won't do in the future, and that is approve something new until you've fixed what we've already identified as broken.
And it was
So
broken.
that's the leverage we have.
It was broken in a lot of ways. I mean, the sheriff has jurisdiction in the middle of a city.
Mhm.
Well, under mutual aid, yeah, the city's taking the calls, but it just didn't work, same with fires. Anything, when you're surrounded by a city, it just isn't logical. It didn't make any sense at all.
People in attendance today, I think this particular LAFCO agency is blessed with excellent staff and very dedicated commissioners.
Mhm.
And I'd like to point out that not only is the staff excellent, but you can make yourselves available to our agencies throughout Butte County to
Absolutely.
help facilitate, collaborate, whatever is necessary. You're willing to do that, and this commission backs those services.
Yeah.
So people need to know that.
And one other thing is I've seen in the grand jury reports, the annual reports where they're doing investigations, they've used MSR, the determinations in MSRs
right.
as part of that. And they have, they have a little pull, and so they use that information, which is
Definitely.
important.
Mhm.
Any other questions or comments by anybody? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate that. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Next up is,
Do you want to take any questions from?
yeah, anybody could ask a question if they're.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
Thank
do
you,
it.
Bill. I appreciate the opportunity to come speak. My name is Patrizia Hieronymus, Executive Director of Butte Environmental Council. That was so informative. and so helpful in so many ways. I just had some questions about the approvals of developments going forward. I know that they come through LAFCo for approval, and I saw the long list that Steve had up here last, and we just wondered about a couple of maybe this is better for later on in the special projects that you're going to go over. We wondered about some of the conditions for approval. What about a development that is proposed in a high or very high risk wildfire area?
That's an incredibly broad question to try to answer, but.
Sorry, Steve, I had a
But the
copy.
short answer is that natural hazards in general are part of the factors that we consider. So if a project comes in front of us, and that project obviously would need annexation into the city or a city or to function, we would look at the documentation from that project. We would look at those factors and see if they were addressed. If in fact the project did address it in some way that we felt acceptable, then that factor would be met. It could also be not met. We could say that we looked at this and the information provided is not substantial or significant enough to override that factor, in which case we ask for additional information.
Okay.
State laws evolving on that issue right now. So who knows what they're going to give us.
I imagine that it would have been considering the fires in LA and the proximity to local fire stations. Thank you so much.
Great question. Anyone else like to ask anything? Again, thank you for being here. Appreciate that. Next up is public comment on anything not on the agenda. You can come speak on it and we'll listen to you, but we will not take action. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Connolly. I just wanted to bring to the
Could you
commission.
identify yourself?
I'm sorry, I'm John Stonebraker, speaking as an individual. Wanted to bring to the commission's attention that Paradise Irrigation District gave direction to their district manager to be part of the conversation regarding Paradise Sewer. And then we had a large meeting last night with more than 70 people in attendance where some members of the public were interested in possibly a joint powers association between the town and the irrigation district to operate a liquids only sewer in the town. And there's also, I suggested that it might be more appropriate for a expansion of powers of PID rather than creating a new agency. And that's something that staff is certainly capable of determining whether that's more efficient for the taxpayer. So I just wanted to bring that to the commission's attention. Also, we've been hearing additional rumblings that PG&E intends to fully abandon the DeSable Centerville project, which they attempted to do approximately in 2016. At that time, PID was one of the interested bidders in the project. So right now, they're still transferring Feather River water through Hendricks Canal into Butte Creek watershed, which is important for agriculture and many other things. We need to make sure that this canal continues to operate both for the agricultural users and for the salmonids in Butte Creek. So I don't know if PID is still interested in this project or not, but I wanted to bring to the commission's attention that somebody will be needed to operate that, and it might be correct to have a local agency operate the canal if what we are inferring from what we have been told is that the hydropower portion of the project is no longer financially justifiable, and they want to get out of FERC regulations and sort of operate this as a multiple benefit project without being too concerned about the hydropower. And so then there's other issues. There's contracted water users, both for the water that's going from Feather River into Butte Creek, and then also for contracted users along the canal. So, again, we just wanted to bring this to the commission's attention. Obviously, won't be on the agenda today. Just let you know what's out there in the works. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak under public comment? We'll close public comment. We'll move on to the executive officer's report.
Good morning, Commission. I'm just going to run through some things real quick. First up, congratulations, Mr. Kimmelshoe. You've been appointed by your colleagues to come back for another 4 years. That doesn't start until May, but they got way out in front of it for you.
We're worried he changed his mind.
The Budget Committee, as you selected that, will meet next week to talk about the preliminary budget. So just letting you know that's at 10 a.m. and you know who you are, the 4 members who are on that committee. Question is actually for the commission. I'm bringing it to your attention that we had a conflict on for our meeting on May the 1st, which is the Thursday, obviously our normal first Thursday, and that is not going to be available as we will be at a workshop and giving presentations of all things at LAFCo. So we have arranged to have this room on Thursday, May 8th at 9 a.m. same time. So we're hoping that the majority of our commissioners can put that on their calendar and make that date. It was the most convenient of all possible dates that we could choose. And the city, of course, had to make that consistent with their calendar as well. So please note that change to May 8th. We also started the special district election. Shannon brought that up in her slideshow. We are going out for that right now, asking for nominations. The nomination form is attached to your executive officer's report if you want to pass that on to anybody who's interested. We need those nominations to be returned to us as soon as possible. And then that term will begin on June 1st of 25 and then go for 4 years until 29. So that affects both Commissioner McGreehan and Commissioner Bradley at present.
Isn't the deadline
March 14th? That sounds correct. Yes, I can look at the form. I won't skip over the lease thing. We're still looking to deal with the office space issue. It's not a huge priority at present. And the financial audit is underway, and we expect that back anytime soon with no particular findings that are abnormal. Moving on to public agency engagement, I just want to bring something to your attention. Butte County just adopted its local hazard mitigation plan. Just recently. It's available now online. The reason I even want to bring it up is Shannon and I participate in that process, not because we want to participate as LAFCo, but we wanted to make sure that we could get our special districts to participate. Places like Berry Creek and Lake Madrone and you know, districts that have suffered from wildfires. And it's immensely important, as the board members know, to get in local hazard mitigation plan as an agency that's affected. That way you have that opportunity to access grant money should that hazard arrive and you have mitigations in place. So this is one of those areas where we don't do the work, but we go out to our districts to encourage them to not miss these deadlines because it's easier for us to sort of monitor it than it is for a lot of our small districts. Skip over that one. Oroville Sewer Agencies, there's nothing to report. I'm going to jump down to the next new item, which is under projects. This is an interesting one. As you might have thought, Valley's Edge was no more. It may be something coming forward. You see in your report, a press release that was provided. I'm not going to get into the details because it doesn't matter right now for us, but the reality is they're looking to, as a legal action, to overturn the referendum. I'm not even going to talk about that. That's got to be worked out between the city and the applicant. What's important is it's in our sphere of influence. We put it in the sphere and we expected that annexation to come forward. So right now that land remains in the sphere as an identified growth area for the city of Chico. I'll stop right there because everything else is speculative at this point, but this is still on very much on our radar, and I still get calls to answer questions about this process. So I'll keep you informed as anything changes on that. The Town Sewer Dice project, you've just heard a little bit about that. I informed you all at our last meeting that unfortunately the price tag ballooned. State Water Board no longer wants to fund it. I don't want to say much of this because Greg has to live this stuff all the time, but the reality is the town now has to find out what they want to do differently because running that main line down to Chico is not going to be feasible. Now, there's a variety of alternatives. The only thing I want to add to you is PID may play a role in this. That's up for the town and PID to determine, not so much for us. But if they decide they want to work together on that, we will have to provide an expansion of powers to the Paradise Irrigation District to do it. Based on the MSR we just completed with them, they have a pretty glowing MSR as to having all of their sort of cards in a row. So we would end up getting that request from PID, but that would only come after they came to some agreement, if any agreement, with the town of Paradise. So we will continue to track it and process it. And as Mr. Stillraker brought up this morning, and I learned recently, because I got an email directly from Kevin Phillips, who is now back as manager of Paradise Irrigation District. You might recall he was there before and during the fire, and then he was at the town, and now he's back. He did send me a very brief email that said that the PID board did direct him to work with the town to talk about that process and what that might look like. So for whatever role we can play, we will certainly be there to provide any facts or processing information to them. So I'll keep you up to date on that. I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that, Greg. Okay.
Very good.
Yes, sir.
Just a quick question, since we're on this general topic. The MSR that's in
Yeah.
effect for,
Kept breaking.
PID, that, is
New
that
ones,
an
they broke.
MSR that was post campfire or pre campfire?
We just adopted that 3 months ago. 4
Okay.
months ago, maybe. I'm trying to think. It's everything's sort of blended together. No, it's recent. It's post campfire.
recent.
It's within the last year that we adopted it.
And then related to that,
No.
the MSR for the town of Paradise was woefully outdated, right? Isn't it pre campfire?
It is
Oh, yeah.
pre-campfire, and the bugaboo for that, for us, frankly, has been that to do an MSR, it's a snapshot in time of everything
Yeah.
you're doing. To say this in the friendliest way I can say is the town desperately needs to update its land use plan. They know that, and there's a process moving forward, I think that you know about that. To do an MSR, as Shannon pointed out in her slideshow, about things that we know are either temporary or have not been figured out yet, is a colossal waste of tax dollars and time. Am I not on? No. Okay. So what we'd like to see and the process would look like is the town updates its general plan. We have a new land use plan. Now we have some real numbers that we can work with. And then we will go back and look at an MSR based on that plan and all the other things that the town has done since, which then be a current snapshot that would be useful to PID and to others in the community, PRPD and others. So, and most importantly, to the town. We- So that is the nature of planning documents, sadly, but
Yeah, I know, but more so.
I don't know if that answers your question now, but we would,
The subject of general plan,
right.
if it was brought more current and up to date, it might provide some key related factors for helping decide on providing sewer services for the community.
Well, it's a great question because it tears back to what Shannon brought up in her slide about what is, this idea that we do them every 5 years as needed. Well, the bottom line is we look at an agency, and I'll use City of Chico as an example because I don't see anybody from Chico here, but they updated their general plan. City staff, excuse me. But they updated their general plan, and it was at that point that we contracted with them to update their sphere of influence because they had a brand new plan, which resulted in a brand new sphere of influence, which then resulted in us having to do a brand new MSR update. So that it's all done, and the city funded that process, so it all came together very cooperatively, if you will, and consistently. To do any of those things out of that step, it can be done, but we're putting out information that may or may not either be accurately present on the ground today, or it may be information we just can't answer. And then you're putting out a document that people are expecting to get answers from that have a lot of questions, and that's not usually useful. So that's the rubric we have to go through when we look at, like, we're going to update that general plan or that sphere of influence. Is there a reason? And the reason usually is a city updates its general plan, or a special district updates its master plan that changes something fundamentally in their process. We go back and look at it and reshape it with the new information. But boy, we would love to get on the town's process of updating that because there's a lot of good information. Town has done a tremendous lot of work that's not been documented in any current plan. And I think it's valuable for the town to work with us to get that done as soon as possible.
Thank you.
So
Really noted.
there's nothing more that's new from last time, so I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Do you have any correspondence?
Do not.
Do we have a closed session today?
We will. It'll be quick, really quick.
Meeting adjourned.
Well, you're
To
gonna
closed
have to come
session.
back and report out a closed session, so.
Yeah, we'll report out from closed session. Was taken. So we're adjourned till our next meeting.
I think 4 of us are here for a quorum, so you can adjourn.
Yeah, it's a good thing. Did you record that? Okay.
All right.